Welcome back to building a full stack dApp with free, gas-free meta transactions. This is the end product of what we're going to be building in this lesson. This is going to be the front end that's going to interact with our smart contract using Biconomy so that we can submit transactions without paying any gas. Here's an example. Let's type in, well, first let me make sure I'm on the right network. It'll only work on Coven. So I will open up MetaMask. We'll switch to the account. We'll jump over to Coven. Now that we're on Coven, let's refresh the page. This is hosted on Biconomy's website, so I didn't have to build any of this. There we go. Okay, so it looks like here is the current value of quote red off chain. So what I can do is I can type in hello world from Sweetman.eth. And now I can submit that transaction. And when I need to sign, you can see there's no gas being charged. It's just signing a message. I'm not paying any gas. So I can sign that message. And then we can see that the transaction was successful. And then we got a successful submission. And now we can see that the value is hello from Sweetman.eth. And now, to verify that this information has been updated on chain, I can refresh the page, and then now it's going to read this value back from the chain, and it should be hello world from Sweetman.eth. So this is the end product we're going to be building today. This is the dApp from Biconomy. I will have a link in the notes, but if you don't find it, you can just search Biconomy on GitHub, and then we're looking for the demo dApp that they have. So if you go inside of their repositories, we're just going to look for demo dApp. There it is. Demo dApp. They do also have a newer version of this MetaTX standard. They've got an example inside of here. However, I have found it's much more challenging to set up personally. So I like their older demo dApp. And that's what we'll be using today. So step one, we're going to clone this repository. So I'm just going to click code. I'm going to copy the GitHub link, and now we're going to head over to our project folder. Again, we've got our smart contract in here, we've got our original app that we built, and then I ran this demo once before, and so this exists for me, but you probably won't have this. Let's go ahead and clone the repo with git clone, paste our upstream URL, and now we've got this new demo or dApp demo. Change directory into your dApp demo with cd dApp demo. And we can see from here, we've got our package.json, package lock.json, everything that we need to get started. Let's check out the README to see if they give us any instructions other than, okay, it's just npm start. So we're going to run npm I first to make sure that we install all of our packages. Now that we've cloned our repo, this next step that we're working on now is actually running the same example that we saw here that's hosted on Biconomy's website. We want to run this locally and still have it work just as well. And the first step to doing that is installing some packages. Lots and lots and lots of packages. Feel free to skip ahead a couple seconds. You could probably skip a couple 15 seconds while this is installing. And I'm going to close. Actually, this is going to be fine. We'll keep this open. Here's our new dApp demo file structure while we're waiting for all these packages to install. Looking at the dApp demo, they do have the smart contracts folder. We're not going to pay any attention to that because we've already got our smart contracts. We're only going to be using this for our React code. And so the React code is, we're mainly going to be looking at our source folder. Inside of our source folder, the main file we're going to be modifying is our app.js. This is going to have a lot of the info in it, such as the chain we're working with, which is right now set up to Coven. And then we can also try to find where we've got our dApp ID as well as our API key. Now these are both going to be set to the Biconomy info right now, so we'll want to update this to our own API key. And then we also have stuff down here like getting the contract. So we've got a contract ABI and a contract address. We'll need to update those. as well as some of these methods. So get quote is the first read method that's happening. We know it's a read method because we're using call instead of transact. And so this is a get quote. We're going to want to update this to our smart contract method of retrieve. And then there's also a method. Here's going to be getting our data to sign. We retrieve a nonce. There's going to be a few things that we're actually going to need to update inside of this dApp, so it's a pretty good example. And now that we have everything installed, we're going to run npm start, I believe, is the command. Looks like it is. This is going to open up the same app that we were just looking at hosted elsewhere, now hosted on our own server, locally running, using React. There we go. We got the initial page loaded. We've got the message. Again, even though this is running localhost, it's still reading from the same smart contract, so it gets the same message I set. And now I can update this message, sweetmin.eth updated this message. And now I should be able to sign this locally. Oh. Womp womp. Looks like something happened. We're probably not connected. No, it says I'm connected. Let's refresh the page and disconnect my wallet just to see what happens if I disconnect. Let's refresh. Hopefully it's going to pop up MetaMask now. There we go. Okay, so we're going to connect our MetaMask. My new quote. Okay, there we go. Nonce is number 7, 1 higher than it was before, and now we're just signing a message, no gas is being paid. And we can even, if you really want to get deep into the weeds, you can look into the console, and then you can see that we've logged the transaction hash here. And so let's wait till this finishes, and then we can look up the transaction hash to see more details about this transaction. Let's wait till it finishes. So the first thing we got is that the transaction hash has been included inside of a block. It's been, I believe, like, there we go. And now we have the actual processing of it with the block hash and the rest of that information. We get the block number. And so now we can head over to Mumbai. I'm sorry, not Mumbai. We can go to Covin.etherscan.io because right now we're set up on Covin. And then I can paste this transaction hash and I should see it here. Not found, that's kind of poopy. Transaction hash. I'm on Covin. Surprised. There we go. Okay, so there's our successful transaction. Looks like it was not from me, but it was from the smart contract. And then it is eventually going into the smart contract that's set. We don't need to go deeper down this weed because we're not actually going to be using Covin. Just wanted to show that the transaction, I didn't pay any gas. Gas was paid. You can see the 0.00045 Ether was paid. I never had to pay that. That came out of Biconomy. It was a meta transaction that was ended up actually being, the gas was forwarded by Biconomy. And with that, we're now going to start updating this to work with our smart contract that we have deployed over on Mumbai. So we're going to have to, one, change our contract that we're interacting with to use our contract. We're also going to have to change the network. Instead of using Covin, we're going to want it to use Mumbai. And finally, we're going to want to change the methods because the methods in our smart contract are going to be different than the methods in the smart contract that we're currently interacting with that came out of the box with Biconomy. And the last thing is we're going to want to update the Biconomy details to use the Biconomy data from our Biconomy account instead of using the default Biconomy. Lots of words. With that being said, let's get started. Let's kick it off. So let's just start playing around in here. Starting at the top, the first thing that I notice is that I want to change this chain ID because we're not going to be using Covin. Mumbai, and I know I've just memorized that the Mumbai network is 80,001. Next step, I want to, it looks like we're using a verifying contract, and I'm going to want to change that. So I'm going to command click into my config, If you can't command click, just know that you've got config.js right here with the info. This address we'll want to update to our smart contract, and this ABI we're going to want to update to our smart contract. So let me first grab my contract address, and I'll paste that there. And then we're also going to want the ABI, which I don't currently have open, so let's open up our smart contract terminal. cd smart contract code. Oh wait, no, I do already have it open. That was silly of me. We don't need this. I already have it open in my smart contract, so we can open up the smart contract inside of artifacts, contracts, box v2, box v2.json. I can collapse my ABI. I can copy this entire array, and now we can go back to our config. And let's notice we're going from lines 111 to line 4 right now, and once I paste, we're now going to line 102. So we've got a little bit smaller of an ABI. Size doesn't matter. We're just using different methods. So now we've updated our contract address. We've also updated our ABI. Let's keep looking through here to figure out what we actually need. Name, version, chain ID, verifying contract, all that seems fine. We've got a nonce and a from. Let's keep scrolling. We've got a use effect that's trying to look up window.ethereum to make sure that you got MetaMask to use the dApp. Here we've got our Biconomy, dApp ID, and API key. Note right here, dApp ID is no longer needed in the latest version of the Biconomy SDK. However, we're not using the latest version of the Biconomy SDK right now. What comes installed with this is a little bit older. We'll address this in a couple seconds. I'm going to keep scrolling just to read through everything else, but note that we will need to update this Biconomy info. We're setting up our Web3. This is our Biconomy listener event, so this makes sure that Biconomy is fully loaded before we try to actually load our contract object. And so we don't load our contract until we actually have Biconomy ready. So that's very important to know, and then once Biconomy is loaded, we can then start our app. Start our app is then getting quote. We'll want to update this as well, so I'm going to add a to-do here, to-do, update to retrieve, I believe is the method name. I could be wrong about that. So we need to change that method. It's still going to be a call, and it'll still be from this address. And that should be everything in the start app. It's just going to get the quote. So then we've got on button click meta. It's going to log our address. And then we get the nonce. Nonce right now is being read as a method from our smart contract. We will not be using a method from our smart contract, so we're going to need to get that nonce using the ethers.js library. And so we'll dive into the documentation to get that piece of information. And then we send async our typed data, and then we have to sign it again to actually send that signed data. And down here, okay, so here it is. Here's where we're setting the quote. This is going to get updated to the store function, because we use store to update the value instead of set quote. It's a different function. So let me make another to-do here. What is going on? To-do, update, set quote, meta to store. On receipt, we start the app again, get the new value, and then we've got our rendered JSON. And we'll want to update some of this stuff, but for now, I'm just going to change this to gas-free dApp. Okay, let's get started. Out of the things we need to do, I think the first and most important things are going to be to update the methods that we're calling. And I want to make sure that we have loaded the right smart contract now, and I'll do that by checking out the first place we're creating our contract inside of the Biconomy.BiconomyReady async event. I'm just going to console.log contract. And let's see if we're actually able to, well, and I'll also put a little console.log Mumbai smart contract just to make it stand out a little bit more for us. Head back over to our React app. Let's see if we've... Okay, and we get some errors. Get quote is not a function. However, we can see that we did log our Mumbai smart contract, and it... We've got methods. And then we've got our store method, which is what we're going to use to write to the blockchain. And we've also got our retrieve method, which is what we use to read from the blockchain. And this leads us into the next error. We can see right here, contract.methods.getQuote is not a function. That's because we don't have a method of getQuote in here. Our method that we want to read from is our retrieve method. So next step, let's update this error by changing getQuote to retrieve. So let's look up getQuote. And we're going to change this to retrieve. And now I don't know what results actually going to look like here. And so I want to make sure that console.log result console.log result, and let's see what we're getting back here. We've got our gas-free dApp, looking good so far. Okay, and then we got our contract, and after that we see RPC error. We've got a MetaMask RPC error. What that tells me is that we're on the wrong network. So I'm going to change this text. Instead of saying COVID to say Mumbai. This doesn't actually impact the performance of the dApp, but it does remind us that we need to be connected to the Mumbai network. Now that we've changed, the reason we need to change our current ID, the current network, is because we changed this chain ID. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch my network over to Mumbai. And now that I've switched my network, I'll refresh the page. And now we're getting an error that says the current network ID 8001 is different from what the dApp is registered as on the dashboard. And that tells me, okay, now we need to update our Biconomy info in order to make this work. So let's go grab our Biconomy API key. And let's also update our Biconomy package. So that way we don't need the dApp ID, because dApp ID is no longer being displayed inside of the dashboard as far as I am aware. No registered dApps, that shouldn't be right. We should have a dApp. I swear I just had one. Let's log out, log back in. Unless my dApp got deleted, but I was just here yesterday. There we go. Okay. And then here's our API key. I will go ahead and copy that API key. Now we're going to look for Biconomy. We're going to overwrite the API key with the API key we just copied. And we're also going to delete this dApp ID because we don't have it anymore. And the last step we're going to do is we're going to set debug to true, just to make it easier to debug anything that happens. And now we should see an error because we have not updated our Biconomy package. Let's find out. We get an error that says dApp ID and API key are required options. Alright, so right now we have to include that, but what can we update our package to? Let's check out our package.json and let's copy this package name of Biconomy Mexa. Let's head over to a new tab and search just at Biconomy Mexa, the same package name. And that should take us to the node package manager, npm.js. And we can see that the current latest version of this package is 2.0.25, which is way newer than 1.5.4. And so we're going to put in that new version. And now I'm going to delete my node modules just to get a clean build, as well as my package lock.json. I'm going to delete both of those files. And now we'll crash here, and now we'll run npm I again to reinstall all of our packages, this time with an updated Biconomy SDK. So now we gotta wait for our npm packages to install again. Not the fastest, but definitely needed. And after that, we should not get that error anymore. We should now be able to actually read that value and see what we are getting as our result. So this is the step we're on right now. We've already updated this to be retrieved, so I can remove that, but we do need to make sure that we are setting the quote and the owner properly. Owner, I don't think I'm going to care about. I'm probably just going to let this kind of die as deprecated code because I don't necessarily care, but the set quote I am going to actually use. Using the React app for our purposes. And then from here, if you need to like skin this app and continue to change it for your own, I recommend building off of here as a good base framework for seeing it work. And then the example we're taking right now is, okay, well, how can I skin it for my own smart contract on my own network in my own Biconomy info? So really like changing up as many variables of this out-of-the-box app as possible. Now that we are loaded, we're going to npm start to rerun our server, and let's see how we do. What did I change? Oh, that's it. And I shouldn't need this anymore, the npm website, but we'll keep it open until we can verify we have updated our Biconomy package successfully. Still starting the server. There we go. Officially loaded. We'll inspect the page so we can start taking a peek at what's going on in our console. Looks like we're getting some errors right off the bat. Let's refresh the page. And we're still not seeing anything. Nothing helpful, at least. Default is not a constructor. It looks like we're getting some errors related to Biconomy. We've got our API key, and I think debug true is an actual method, but I guess it might not be. I think it is. This should be working now, so let me crash the server again and start it up again. Shouldn't make a difference. Unless the new package just hasn't been registered. But it looks like we should just be able to pass in a Web3 provider and then an API key. Web3 provider and then an API key, so I think we're doing this right. But it's looking like we're not. And this is the eternal struggle of being an engineer. Okay, reference error process is not defined. Let's keep looking through these logs. What else we got? Yeah, it does look like it is. We're doing something incorrect with our Biconomy constructor. Looks like src index line 8. Webpack.default is not a constructor. This is all coming from, is it going to give me a line number anywhere? Main bundle, no. So it's got to be right here though. So we're doing something wrong here. I'm going to quickly check how I did it in my working version. I know it's kind of cheating because I did this off, but let's go ahead and check out how I'm doing it. It looks exactly the same. And our package.json has 2.0.25, which should be exactly the same as what we've got here, 2.0.25. So our package.json looks fine. I think this is exactly, oh, I know what it is. The import is a little bit different. So the import in this new package, we need to wrap our import on line 4 with curly braces. The only reason I knew that is because I faced this earlier and now it turns green. And when it turns green, we're good. Now we are loaded. And now let's see what our result is. Here's our result. It's this number. So we just have a number. It's not an object. So continuing to move forward, we can delete that comment. And now we just want to set quote to result. There's no result.currentOwner. And this really doesn't matter, so I'm just going to set it to my Ethereum address just so that it does have a value. And now we've got the value logged on. Oh, let's wait till it gets the value from chain. So now we got the value and we're logging our public key. So we have now updated the retrieve method. We've updated all of our chain info. We're still working on our chain calls. The next one, when we type in our info down here and we hit submit, we want it to actually interact with our smart contract and update without having to pay any gas. So that's going to be a little bit further down, right here. Okay. And I forgot to put a to-do, but we do want to update our nonce because this method isn't going to work. Watch, I'll put in a little to-do use Ether's JS library to get nonce. Because if I save this right now as is, and then we try to set the quote with a new number, it's not really a quote, it's a number, it's a uint. I click this, and now we should get an error that says contract.methods.nonces is not a function, and that's because inside of our contract we don't have a nonces method. So what I need to do is figure out how to get a nonce using Ether's, or whatever the library is, which I actually think it's Web3. So let's use Web3 nonce. Web3.eth.getTransactionCount +1. My error was that I was setting which left a gap in the next one. So I think we just need to use this. Let's remove. Okay, now we're just going to say nonce equals that. Is it an async call? Let's look up get transaction count in the Web3 library. Get transaction count. And it gets the number of transactions that have been sent from that address, web3.eth. It does not say, oh, it does say it returns a promise, and which returns a number. So we will need to await this. And now let's log our nonce to see what we get. Console.log nonce. And I want to say we're at nonce A. I actually have no idea what nonce I'm on. I'm not even going to pretend. 1, 2, 3. Submit. What did we get for our nonce? Did we get a nonce? I do not see. Provided address undefined is invalid. Ah, I'm calling the method wrong. We need to pass an address in as the only parameter. So inside of get transaction count, I need to put the address, which is window.ethereum.selected address, as the only param. Save that. We should be good to go. 543, submit. Oh, looks like we are opening up a transaction. This is getting closer. I'm not going to sign this because it's not correct yet, but we did get, or we should have at least gotten a nonce. Nonce of 18. So we are getting a nonce, and we are able to use that nonce. So let's keep moving forward. The last thing we should need to do is update our set quote meta to store. Set quote meta is not a method in our smart contract. We use store. So I'm going to update this to store. And then I believe the only value we pass in is going to be our new quote, which is going to be the new number that we want to type in. So I think I can remove the rest of these. I'm also not sure. We're going to remove the rest of these. And now let's see what happens when we sign that message. 1, 2, 3. Let's wait till this loads. Okay, we're all loaded. Let's submit. We get MetaMask opening up, prompting us to sign our message. We're at nonce 18. We'll sign nonce 18. I don't know why it pops up a second transaction here. I think I'm doing something inefficiently, but we'll sign this again. We got our personal signature. And then we got a transaction hash, which is great news. And let's see if it actually gets included inside of a block. And it looks like we got included inside of a block, and our new information is 1, 2, 3. Let's verify if this is right. Let's close down a couple tabs we're not using anymore. And let's head over to mumbai.polygonscan.com. And let's look up the transaction hash that we saw inside of our console. This should take us to the transaction we just submitted and signed. Yep, it looks like it's been included, but it hasn't been reflected yet on chain, just got reflected on chain. And here's the smart contract we're interacting with. And if we look at this, this is actually sending to a lot of different places, not just my transaction. So what we're actually just sent to transaction to is going to be Biconomy probably. So let's check out the smart contract we actually wanted to interact with. Did anything happen there? Not seeing anything right now. So, did we actually interact with the smart contract that we wanted to interact with? Let's find this address. Let's see if we can find it inside of our code base. I don't see it anywhere here. So the question is, why don't we have any transactions showing up under our smart contract? The value was updated, and we are still reading from... Let's check out some stuff, because this is very curious. So we refresh the page, and we see our dApp, and we should see our smart contract somewhere. Here we go. In our smart contract, what is the address? Here's our address. It's the smart contract that we're looking at right here. So we are reading from this smart contract, because this is what's actually pulling in our 1, 2, 3, and this result is a method inside of our smart contract. So it is reading from our smart contract. But my question is, why are these transactions not showing up on this smart contract? This might be my lack of knowledge, so I'm not going to keep it going. The long story is we are now submitting transactions into our new contract. This is transaction hash AA6C, AA6C, so I see it right here, and it looks like it was from this address. I wonder what this address is that it's coming from. No tags available. Does look like it's going a lot to the same address. There's more my own curiosity that I'm digging around right now. Looks like it's a legacy transaction, so not using EIP-2771. But super low GUI. That was super cheap. No gas. It was super low gas. But we didn't have to pay any gas, which was really nice. Yeah, that is everything. Like, we are now sending these transactions onto the chain, but the end user doesn't have to pay any gas. They're just signing a message. We've funded a wallet, and that wallet is getting used. Actually, I'm curious. Let's look at that wallet again. Let's go back to Biconomy. Again, this is just me playing around. If you got better things to do, you can skip ahead to the next lesson. View the dApp. Okay. Trusted forwarder. This is our contract address. View stats. Okay, there we go. We can see that we've been using some of these transactions, and we can actually see how much was spent, and we can look at the transactions that we paid for. This is super cool. So now we've got all these transaction hashes that have been confirmed on chain, and I can copy any of these, and I can look them all up. And we're paying such low gas. This is super nice. Super. Well, it's also moved by a testnet, so that's definitely going to skew our results. Not even a penny what we've spent so far, but it's all, again, testnet. View dApp. Yeah, so everything looks like it's working, right? We are in fact using our Biconomy, and we can see that because 5 minutes ago the transaction that we just sent worked, and I can do it again. Let's change this to 987-654-321. Submit that. We got a transaction hash. We should be able to now check it out over here. And we got a pending transaction. We don't know what it's actually going to settle out to yet. So this is all working. We got Biconomy working. We're not paying gas anymore on the front end. We are paying it on the Biconomy dashboard. And that is it. We have successfully set up a dApp using Biconomy, using meta transactions from EIP-2771, where we are doing meta transactions. You can now build any dApp you want, and you can make the transactions free for your users while still allowing them to actually sign messages and can actually use their private key to sign, so that you know that it's your end user signing it, but they don't have to pay for gas. You can still pay for their gas so that they can use your dApp and not have to worry about getting any Matic. Thanks for tuning in. I will see you in the next lesson.